Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight we have news for you, breaking news that for whatever reason is being downplayed or ignored by other media outlets, but we think you ought to know about it. 5 simple words describe it. There was no Russian collusion. There's no evidence whatsoever that the Trump campaign conspired in any way with the government of Vladimir Putin during the last presidential election, period. That's apparently the conclusion of the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee. That committee spent 2 years investigating this question, of course, hundreds of interviews, reams of classified documents, untold millions in taxpayer dollars. No collusion at all. That is what we are hearing tonight they have found. Now, if you've been following this story at all, and of course you have been, you will not be surprised by this. No Russian collusion is a lot like moon landing actually happened, or abominable snowman was probably a long-haired mountain goat. You knew that already because you're not an idiot. But if so, compare your mental acuity to that of prominent political figures here in Washington. Next time you feel dumb, watch this tape.
I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
Trump has the Kremlin clan surrounding him. There's more to be learned about it. I believe there's been collusion.
It's starting to smell more and more like collusion.
We saw cold, hard evidence of the Trump campaign, indeed the Trump family, eagerly intending to collude possibly with Russia.
Smells like collusion. Plenty of evidence of collusion. Hard evidence of collusion. In the end, it was all fake. And they knew that. They knew it wasn't real. They were lying from the very first day. Only their remarkable aggression, their willingness to say literally anything, no matter how outrageous or slanderous or vile, kept the rest of us from catching on to what they were doing. If the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee is willing to call someone a traitor to this country, there's got to be some truth to it, right? Actually, no, there wasn't. It was always a hoax. Adam Schiff is an unscrupulous charlatan. That's the real lesson here. Don't expect people like Schiff to apologize, though, or correct the record, much less repair the lives of the people they have destroyed. Carter Page still can't find a job. Roger Stone is still facing life in prison. Meanwhile, Schiff's PR team on the other channel continues like none of this ever happened. Here's Malcolm Nance of MSNBC explaining that the results of a 2-year Senate investigation mean nothing. People are guilty because we say they're guilty. We must punish them.
Let me just say one thing. When Benedict Arnold gave the plans to West Point to Major Andre, and they captured Major Andre, they did not have any real information linking those plans to Benedict Arnold other than the fact that he was in his presence at one point during that day. But everyone knew it was treason when they caught the man and they hung him. So at some point, there is going to be a bridge of data here that is going to be unassailable.
No one had any evidence, but everyone knew it was treason when they caught the man and they hung him. That says it all. Let's repeat that once again slowly so you can write down those words and put them on your fridge as a memento of the terrifying mass hysteria we've all just lived through. Quote, everyone knew it was treason when they caught the man and they hung him. That's our country now. That's what the Russia insanity has done to us. The real government shutdown has lasted for nearly 2.5 years. That's 1% of this country's entire existence. We no longer have meaningful policy debates in Washington. We have investigations instead. Nobody can think clearly. Everybody's afraid. The country's core problems don't even rate as interesting anymore, either to legislators or the TV pundits who comment on legislators. The suicide rate just hit a 50-year high. Did you know that? We're in the middle of the worst drug epidemic in the history of America, including the one after the Civil War and the heroin epidemic of the 70s and the crack epidemic of the 80s. This is way worse. And it's one of the reasons the life expectancy in many parts of the country is dropping. This is starting to look like Boris Yeltsin's Russia. And yet nobody in Washington even notices. All Adam Schiff and the rest of the wild-eyed morons can think about is Vladimir Putin, collusion, our hack democracy, and all the other mindless slogans they've repeated long enough to half believe. We've spent 2 years perpetuating a fraud, and they are still doing it. What is this? It's negligence on a stunning scale. It has nothing to do with Trump. It has everything to do with running this country, and they're not. Historians will look back on this moment in amazement and in sadness. Who put these crackpots in charge and let them break things? Why didn't any responsible person in the media say anything about it? Why did they collude in the charade? What the hell happened to America? History will judge us for this moment. Adam Schiff's grandkids will be ashamed of what he did.
Have you found any connection between the Trump campaign and Russia?
Well, I'm not sure how to put it any clearer than I said it before. We have no factual evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia.
Now, to be fair, Burr went on to say they aren't totally finished. New evidence could always emerge, and one unnamed Democratic aide told NBC News, quote, "We were never going to find a contract signed in blood saying, hey, Vlad, we're going to collude." Come on, you can do better than that. Part of the reason the committee isn't finished, they still want to talk to the president's former fixer, scummy lawyer Michael Cohen. He was supposed to testify on Capitol Hill today, but never showed up, even though he was under subpoena. His attorney claims Cohen wasn't feeling well. He had a case of the Tuesdays. Is it safe to say that today's news is further proof that all the Russia investigations are kind of a big waste of time and money thus far? Joining me now, former Trump campaign manager and senior strategist for Great America PAC, it's Corey Lewandowski, senior shoving stuff. Welcome back, Corey.
Thanks for having me back.
So let's talk a little bit about this, because sure, the Senate Intel Committee is saying thus far we have found no collusion. We're almost done. We want to talk to Michael Cohen. After that, we're going to put this baby to bed. The House Intel Committee, they're in the bullpen. They're just warming up. Is there any objectivity left in Washington, D.C.?
Well, we know there isn't. Look, what Senator Burr has said was as clear of a statement as we have heard. There was no collusion. It's the same thing I've been repeating for 2 years now. I could have saved the taxpayers tens of millions of dollars because I was there every single day. We didn't talk to Russians. We didn't interact with Russians. We had nothing to do with Russians. The reason Hillary Clinton lost had nothing to do with Russia. She was a terrible candidate. But look, what we know about Adam Schiff now is the secret meetings he had in Colorado with the Fusion GPS guys. He should be recusing himself from the House Intelligence Committee because he is tainted. We know that he is dishonest. We know that when I was before his committee and others, he leaks the testimony to the media. Then he goes out and tells half-truths. So, look, the Senate, in a bipartisan fashion, Senator Burr and Senator Warner from Virginia were very clear. There was no collusion. This should be the end of the story.
Yeah, but Warner still has a few irons in the fire, and he thinks that there have been some misdeeds, if not odd relationships in meetings. You know, I know that there are several Democrats who are up in arms about the campaign willing to accept help from a foreign adversary. But, and, you know, this may be a tired old theme that we keep going back to, but wasn't that the point of the Clinton Foundation, and wasn't that the ultimate reason for being, was to accept help from a multitude of foreign adversaries?
Well, of course it was. And Kennedy, let's just go back and remember in 2016, President Barack Obama, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, they were responsible for the election integrity of what was taking place. Donald Trump had no more ability as a private citizen to control the outcome of the election as you or I did. So if there were any misgivings going on, if the Russians or the Chinese or the 400-pound fat guy on his bed in mom's basement were trying to impact the outcome of the election, it should have been Obama who stopped that from happening. So let's get right down to it. In 2018, we didn't hear anything about that taking place. And in 2020, if it happens again, that's on Donald Trump's watch. But in 2016, if there was someone trying to interfere with the election, why didn't Barack Obama or Comey or Clapper or Brennan do something in their power to stop it?
Well, they all knew something was happening. And, you know, Comey, when he was still FBI director, and since in his book and in congressional testimony, has implied that they knew a great deal when it was all going on. And if that were so egregious and such a threat to democracy, as they're saying essentially in hindsight, I agree with you. Why not do something then? If something so strange was afoot, that's one thing. The other thing is, I don't know why we're so focused on Russia when essentially they wrote the roadmap for chaos and disinformation and confusion, that there are several countries that can just pick that up and read from it very liberally and sprinkle that into their 2020 plans. And of course, I'm talking about North Korea and Iran and China.
Sure. Well, Kennedy, the other question is, look, if these guys are going to be honest in their investigations, then are they looking into what the Clinton campaign did? Because they have admitted $5 million of their campaign money went to hire a former British spy to go to Russia to create the false dossier. Nobody has ever seen $1 from the Trump campaign go to a former spy, go to someone overseas. It never happened. There's been no evidence of it whatsoever. So when are they going to really look at where the crimes were, which was Samuelson and Huma Abedin and all of those problems, all those people who got immunity from the FBI, from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, from Comey and Clapper and Brennan? When are those people going to be held accountable? Because there are two separate sets of rules.
And there are people who think, well, they don't have jobs anymore. They're not in power, so
they're
not as much of a priority. But, you know, they are upset and up in arms about people from the Trump campaign having contact with Russian citizens, yet Christopher Steele was not only doing handsomely paid opposition research, and God knows who he was talking to. And I don't know how that doesn't cross over the boundaries of acceptable ethics in presidential politics. He was also acting as an FBI informant. He was working for the U.S. government.
And Kennedy, the FBI in their Pfizer application told the courts that he was a credible, well-known, well-established source, and the information he was providing was accurate, and they swore to it under the penalty of perjury before a Pfizer court. Where is the accountability for this? Look, it's amazing what they have done. They wanted to make excuses why Hillary Clinton lost, and so they blamed it on the Russians. And what we've now seen, and Senator Burr is very clear, there was no collusion. I've known it for years, and it's very clear.
There was some weird stuff going on. You've said there were people in the campaign who were very strange and very unethical, from Michael Cohen to Roger Stone and Paul Manafort.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the campaign, that's always going to be an issue because it was a magnet for shady creatures. You can't have that in 2020. We have to be done with that.
The same is true on the Clinton side. No one wants to talk about what Podesta's role was, right?
Yeah.
And the money that he was making and all those criminals. Look, we just saw that the Clinton attorneys were pressuring the FBI to end this.
It doesn't make it right on either side.
I agree.
We have to clean up our politics if we're going to have an honest discussion, because, you know, when one side is pointing fingers at the other, it's incredibly dishonest. And future Supreme Court nominee Corey Lewandowski, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amen.